Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
He's low-key talking exactly about what we're going to talk about, which is the wealth tax stuff. Specifically my favorite state that I just departed, where I can't even believe.
You love the weather and the sun and how beautiful.
You know what? Are. You know
Except for gas prices.
You know what? Hold on.
That must have hit you hard.
I cannot even believe, first and foremost, not even gas prices. I cannot believe how insane expensive it is in California for everything, by the way. Not just gasoline, everything.
Food, it's expensive.
And the quality is just not there for me. So I'm like, except obviously when you're dealing with like a national thing, but if you're dealing with like a local thing, I'm just like, what's going on here?
Were you in the IE or were you in San Diego area?
I was in LA area. So I was in Huntington Beach.
Oh, yeah. You're going to really get hit hard.
And then I was in San Bernardino because I was in Upland. And then I was in Ontario. So I was in all those areas that I guess you could consider the IE, being close to the inland. I mean, Riverside, but I didn't go into Riverside. I was in San Diego. I didn't get a chance to go to San Diego. But I'm sure it's just as expensive there, if not more.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, man, let's get into it, man. You know, you brought up Elizabeth Warren and the wealth tax and everything that's going on with that proposal. It's not law, obviously, but what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I just think that it's funny that, and we talked a little bit about this, I think last week or the week before. I just think it's absolutely hilarious that all of these political leaders, I don't even want to call people Democrat or Republican anymore because it doesn't even really matter at this point. I mean, that's just kind of maybe your general camp that you're in. I almost feel like political classifications are almost becoming scientific now. Do you know what I mean, Len? Where kingdom, order, phylum, class, genus, species, kingdom, order, family, class, genus, species. Like you're not just a Republican now or a Democrat now. You're a this type of Democrat that sides this way, that does this, right? It's like there's so many different types of, in the power to not label people, right? Like labels are for soup cans, right? And that whole thing and to not post that. We've gotten so far away from that by giving people so many more labels.
Okay. I still do believe there's some very stark ideological differences.
Well, yeah, of course. You fall into that general, but wait.
But there are lots of divisions within both ideological camps, though.
Okay, but wait a minute. Can you really say that with the Democratic Party today or even in the Republican Party today? That the Democratic Party, I don't think, has a general thesis or idea or ethos or energy about it at all right now at this point. I think, if anything, if you look at the Democratic Party, I think they're fighting against the going extremely to the left and staying more centrist like Kennedy was. And I think that Republicans on the same side, you have these extreme, the rhinos or whatever you call them, or neocons that want to bomb the shit out of everything and continue to have the industrial military complex and all that stuff. And this new style Republican Party that is led by Trump, that's like, dude, cut the fat. Who cares about all the BS? Cut the red tape, make business work, make capital cheap, make investment work, and make everybody's life great and make everything cheap and fast and easy, which is the 80s of America, right? So I don't know if you have the general thesis anymore besides maybe you could say Republicans lean more to the right and Democrats lean more to the left. Maybe that's the general ethos of each party, but I don't think either of them have a more solid commandment. I mean, obviously the Republican Party did or does or still kind of does, but I don't think any of them have. So to label any of them, Len, I think I know this is off the topic of wealth tax, but it does because these are the people that are actually talking about creating wealth taxes that aren't even wealth taxes for billionaires. They're wealth taxes for middle-class people. They're wealth taxes for everyday people.
Well, I think there are more and more divisions between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So in general, I would say the general Democratic, thesis on the Democrat side is The goal is to make sure that there are programs that support those who need that social safety net, specifically in education and healthcare and retirement. And we want to make sure that we have programs that support them. And also, now you get to the extreme left, which is more of, we want to make sure that government plays a stronger role in providing that type of funding, because people that don't have the ability to fend for themselves, we want to make sure that we take care of them. On the right, with the Republican Party, I think they're more about, hey, rugged individualism. You make sure that you create the opportunity to build wealth, whether it's through employment, through entrepreneurship, and this idea that limited government should, be the law of the land. And so now what I believe is that Trump did is he created a more extreme version of both of those parties. And so what I mean by that is that because with Trump, there is no gray area. With a lot of politicians, to some of the points you brought up in your previous podcast, is that a lot of presidents were politicians and they used, words that said one thing but meant another, and all of these things, where Trump is very much about, being a very direct communicator in terms of how he, when I say direct, I don't necessarily don't think that I'm saying direct equals truth because I don't believe those two things are the same, but he doesn't sugarcoat anything. And so I think what happened is it drove the Democrats to be the anti-Trump party. So now, instead of having their own platform of what they're planning to do on the positive side, they're saying we need to defeat Trump at all costs. And then what the Republicans did is they started to recognize that Trump began to attract the more far right leaning individuals. And so for them to stay elected, they needed to begin to adopt that philosophy as well. And so it created this polar division. And so, so as we look at what's happening with Elizabeth Warren as we transition to this whole wealth tax thing, is that she wants to believe, in my opinion, that, we're just taxing the wealthiest of the wealthy. And because of that, it's not going to hurt most of you. So this should be able to get past legislation. And I think that's a fundamental flaw because it creates a very slippery slope. I'll stop there. I'll talk more about the slippery slope, but I wanted you to jump in and just, take your ideas in terms of what I was just saying.
The best part about having conversations with you, Len, is that I already have thought about 5 different things and deltas that I want to go to because my mind is overstimulated right now in a good way. Yeah. And I could even go off on that tangent, right? I could rip totally on that right now, but I just love how, if you're not a Trump person, everyone gives him so much power. And maybe he does have so much power because I'm listening right now and going, you're absolutely right. But the fact is that the entire Democratic Party, whether it's true or not, and you're kind of laying it out a little bit where you're like, look, they had to shift because of Trump, right? They had to shift.
I think it was just a natural progression.
It's a natural
sides.
Yeah,
you can't
absolutely.
be in the middle. You're going to get shot by both.
Absolutely. So the fact that one human being completely changed the entire trajectory of a party is just absolutely crazy to me. But it is true because when we look at history, why wouldn't he? Trump is in that category. Trump is in the category, I'm sorry, but whether you like it or not, Trump's in the category of Napoleon Bonaparte. He's in the category of George Washington. He's in the category of Elon Musk. He's in the category of Joseph Stalin. All these guys, he's in those categories. Winston Churchill, Woodrow Wilson, he's in those categories because he is absolutely a market maker. He makes the world shift. And you said that. So
that's true.
But here's
I like how you brought up individuals that were on both extremes.
100%.
Some were considered heroes and some were considered villains. And so, so I like the fact that you brought up both.
Well, it's true, because here's the reality. Up until a couple of weeks ago, Cesar Chavez was a hero.
Absolutely.
I mean, unbeknownst obviously to us, but there goes the fact that in your mind, a version of people exists that no longer exists, right? So absolutely, there are people, and by the way, nothing is always ever what it seems. So to your point, Len, there are people that are on the bad side that probably did a lot of good things that you'll never know. And there are people on the good side that probably did a lot of atrocities that are probably even worse than the good stuff, the bad guys. But you'll never know these things because situational awareness, the fog of war, in the heat of the moment, that eliminates the gray area, or eliminates black and white, right? You know what I'm talking about? When you're in that moment, the fog of war or nuance or the heat of the moment or the heat of the battle, you have to stop operating as right and wrong, and you have to operate in right and wrong, but then you have to also measure what's most effective.
I want to put a pin in that point and come back to it, because we have a lot to talk about.
We do,
but war and everything. But I want to come back, because there was a real quick point, just so I could direct where you're going to riff, because I know you can go in different directions. Okay, so you said something that really stuck out to me, because I was talking about the wealth tax, and one of the things you said is that it's an indictment on the middle class. And one of the reasons why I said it's a wealth tax is because specifically what I was focusing on is the untaxed asset growth. Like where you have a person who has, let's just say, I'm going to give an extreme example.
Unrealized capital gains.
Yes.
But in California, it's even wilder, Len, where they want to tax savings and equity in your home. So I'm right there with you.
So okay, for those of you that are listening, I just want to paint this picture. So imagine a person has built a company, okay? And the company has $1 billion valuation, but they've taken no salary. So they've taken all the money they've made and they've put it back into the business.
Things you and I have done. Things you and I have done.
100%. And so in this extreme situation, they have a company that they're sitting on, which is an asset. It's worth $1 billion, but they put all of the money. So in their bank, they might have $5, $10, $15, $20,000. So if this bill goes through, they would be taxed on the valuation of their company. We're talking equity, unrealized gains. If they have a house or something like that, and they're using, and they have art and all of those things, let's just say their whole net worth is $1 billion, and they get a tax bill that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars. There's no way that somebody in that situation would stay here in the United States, because I'm telling you right now, if that bill were to come to pass, I'm out. I'm done. I'm leaving. I will leave.
But Len, who will pay for all the programs? Who will pay for all the programs?
And you're absolutely right.
Who will pay for all the programs?
That's the thing. And that's the problem, to your point, is that when you look at the extreme side of the Democratic Party, the problem that I have is that wealthy individuals are mobile. They don't have to stay anywhere, especially and so before that tax hits, because even what they're talking about is taxing people when they take their assets out of America. The moment I find out that that's coming down the pike, I'm moving my money and I'm out of here before that even happens. Now, I'm not the 1% of the 1%. Imagine all of the mobility they have.
Yeah.
So I think
they don't. It's already done. It's already done. They don't care, because those guys already are. You got Singapore. I mean, banking in Singapore is huge.
Cayman Islands,
huge for that kind of stuff. So they already have it done. They absolutely already have it done. But that's the scary thing, because again, this type of stuff. By the way, I don't think it's ever going to pass, at least in the near future right now.
I don't think so.
But the
concern that I have is that if people don't understand the implications of that, they'll say, "Oh, it doesn't impact me." So therefore, I just hope that we're smart enough not to allow something like that to pass.
But Len, this is exactly why I have so much passion when we talk about it. Look, voter ID is a must. You know what's happening right now. The sheriff, the Riverside sheriff, just is challenging it. He's fighting with the attorney general about the fact that there are like 48,000 more signatures than there were ballots cast for the vote that changed the congressional district mapping. That's the thing, because Len, you're saying you're so adamant and you're passionate about it because you understand that when you have a tax like that, it completely breaks down the fundamental mechanisms of capitalism. Because if you do something like that, that's like taking oil out of a combustion engine. It's like trying to run your diesel engine on regular gasoline. It just will not work.
Right.
So, and you understand that. But the scary thing is that everybody has to realize, and that most people don't realize, is that when you give all of this rhetoric to the colleges and you allow the colleges to do what they've done, and you allow this woke ideology, and you allow the weird crap that we allowed during COVID and the government control and the government out of crazy control spending, all of this stuff creates the environment for this. And then you look at the voter fraud that's happening, and you look at the illegal immigrations, the millions of people being allowed to come over here with getting set up on social programs, our social programs. We're paying ourselves to vote ourselves out of control of our own company, essentially our country. Because these guys are going to be replacing the voter rolls, Len. So who cares about what anybody's saying that actually votes? Because all the votes are fake. And of course, they're going to vote for these people who have this agenda to push America out of power and to push it into a social state and to make socialism this kind of this movement thing. It's not done the way we used to do it in wars. It's done by changing the voter rolls. And Elon Musk said it. He said that's why he got involved in this election with Trump. Because if Kamala Harris would have got elected, Len, I guarantee you and I would be talking very differently right now. The world would be talking very different right now. In fact, I wouldn't doubt it that the Ayatollah would probably be in the White House right now with her.
Stop it, Chris. Stop it. Okay, I gotta put an end to that. Now, here's the thing. As it relates to voter fraud, I think you've been drinking the Kool-Aid about how widely distributed it is. Now, having said that, so let me finish my thought. I do agree that there definitely needs to be the identification necessary to be able to vote. I think that the process needs to be streamlined so that everybody has equal access to be able to vote, because there's shenanigans behind that policy. It's just like the whole thing went during the Civil Rights Act when they had these conditions to be able to vote. You know, before you had to be a male, then they had these educational requirements that you had to do in order to be able to vote. This is just another iteration of that. But even with that, I think the most extreme position of that is that they're trying to use that as, you know, a way to disenfranchise people and stuff like that. I think there's a bit of that, but I don't think it's as extreme and as emotionally put as the extreme position on that. So, but here's the thing. I believe that you should be able to have to identify yourself in order to be able to vote, regardless of if, you know, whatever state you're in, because if not, there's, you know, also shenanigans on the left where people who don't necessarily have established citizenship can vote, and that sways things. So I do believe that there's room to be able to make adjustments, but there is no evidence. And there were lots of reports done where there was no evidence of wide scale voter fraud. Now, you can say within the sanctuary state like California that people didn't require their ID to vote, but there's still steps in place. Like they have to have an established address and all that stuff. So I want to say this. I am not defending California's lackluster approach to voting, but I also am not suggesting that there's wide levels of fraud. But I want to put a bow back in.
Before you put that bow there, because I want to transition.
I want to come back to the wealth tax, but go ahead.
Yes, before we bow that, and then we can transition. My only argument to that is that I would love to get on the train with you on that. But my meter, if my meter of going, this way or this way for trusting that there's widespread voter fraud, I'm not in the camp where I'm optimistic. I'm in the camp where I want to say there's a 70% chance that there's widespread voter fraud happening. And here's why I say it.
Let me ask you a question as you're saying this.
Because
what about all of those investigations? Because if there's voter fraud, then I want to know about it, because then we can't trust the system.
Right. Here's why you can't trust it, because if the numbers, meaning the cash, is off, and we know there's a bunch of fraud with the money. There's trillions of dollars.
But that's a different thing than voting.
But here's why I'm going to bring it together. The same people that oversee the voting are the same people that oversaw the pocketbook. So if you can't trust them to trust them with the money, how can you trust them with the voting, Len?
Because that's not true, Chris.
It is, Len. The attorney generals work for the governors, and those are the guys. Right,
okay, but those are the guys indirectly. I agree with
Len,
you.
It's all connected. So that's what makes me sway more to the going, I can't get on board with you on it, Len, because they're screwing up the bank book, and they're in charge of the bank book, and they're in charge of the voter registrations or the voter rolls. So if they can change congressional maps, they can change votes. If they can make $300 billion disappear in the state of California, they can make a few 100,000 votes appear. I mean, I don't know why everybody thinks that this is why the government hates. Sorry, Len, I don't want to go into it, but this is why the government hates organized crime so much. The government hates organized crime so much because organized crime shows the people exactly what the government is. Organized crime.
Okay, but here's the implication of what you're saying.
Because that's the wealth tax, Len. Because Len, that's the wealth tax, though, Len. Because in California, you're telling me, because all the billionaires left because you said they're mobile, right? So in California, and you don't think that this is the breeding ground, right? Like Ukraine is the world's premier biolab. Like California is the biolab for socialism and communism now. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but that's it. That in New York, and what's happening in California, when you look at that, you don't think that's a test to roll out with Warren's weird crap with the national plan? Because in California, the billionaires left. Guess what? That tax, the wealth tax, they're coming after
the United States.
Yeah, but Len, they're coming right now in your state. They're coming after your equity in your house. They're going to tax 5% one time on the equity in your tax. But they're about to pass it in California.
Okay, so there are two things that you brought.
How is that not criminal? How is that not criminal?
I'm not in disagreement with that. I'm not in disagreement with that. The issue that I have with what you are suggesting, as you say that it's 70-30, that it's widespread fraud, is that the very essence of democracy, of a democratic republic, relies on our ability to trust that the electoral process is fair. And if that is not the case, Chris, then people will begin to wake up to say, well, why would I even vote? Why would I even, participate in this process? Because it's already rigged. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to, when I say you, I'm talking generally speaking, but when Trump began to, bring up this whole idea of, a rigged election, he understands that if you say the same thing over and over and over and over again, that people who are inclined to believe it, because why would somebody lie over and over? But there have been many, many investigations, and there was no widespread fraud. There were over 30 different investigations. And one thing that I can say is that I think the executive branch is uniquely flawed. I think the legislative branch is ridiculously corrupt. But I think the one last bastion of our checks and balances that I can still have some level is the judicial side. Not in terms of, the disproportionate numbers of incarceration for certain groups. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about as a judicial branch of government. I still think that that's still the most intact, because Supreme Court justices are really bound by the rule of law. And so if people have gone through the judicial branch to investigate if there's widespread voter fraud, they would not have turned a blind eye to that, Chris. And so that's the reason why, like, I'm inclined to agree with you about widespread corruption, because I think is so much cancer inside of this system. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, man, I still have to believe that there is a very strong process to go and vote. Now, last thing is, I do agree that there are states that are too lax in their policies with regard to proof of who you say you are. And so do I think that a person should be a citizen that's legal to vote? 100%. Should they prove that? 100%. There should be a pathway towards that. And that's all I have to say about that topic.
I think the problem lies again with who is there essentially watching the machine work. And okay. That, I think, is the fun. I think everybody can agree on that. And we've seen that time and time again. Because I don't have a problem with any of the social safety nets in the programs. I just have a problem with how they're being done. And I think everybody has that. And we're starting to see that with the level of, I don't want to call it waste and fraud and abuse anymore. I just want to, at this point, because we all know what it is. It's just mismanagement.
Okay.
Gross mismanagement. Like there's just gross mismanagement. And the fact that any politician wants to float any type of idea around where they want to tax wealthy, it's never a wealth tax on the billionaires. It's always another way to tax the middle class. It's another way to tax those people. And it's temporary. When the income tax came out, it was supposed to be temporary. And no tax is ever temporary. Mm-hmm. You think, and nobody ever thinks about the amount of tax they pay. Every time you do something, you pay taxes. You move, you pay taxes.
Moving away from the dollar was supposed to be temporary.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So whenever the government says temporary, just like, hey, COVID is transient. It's transient, man. And inflation is transient. Okay, it's not going to be around for a while. The government has no idea. It's almost like the do exactly the opposite of what they say to do, right? Because it's just, and I get it. They're in a tough position. They have to. There's a lot that they have to do. There's a lot of people they have to make choices every day. And when I say they, collectively, that impact 350 million people plus the rest of the world. But at any rate, speaking of impacting the rest of the world, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could change it and talk a little bit about something salacious first, but just to kind of humor each other a little bit. But because it is definitely tabloid worthy, but I just cannot believe. First and foremost, I can't believe Kristi Noem and the scandal with her husband. You saw that, right? With the whole cross-dressing thing and everything. It's true. Mm-hmm. And then her affair with her aide and all that stuff. And I don't want to talk about people. That's whatever they want to do is whatever they want to do. Obviously, they're public figures, so it's going to come out in the public. Mm-hmm. I just think it's just crazy to me because that to me seems like a hit piece. Like someone took her down. So that's a hit piece. Like that's a political hit piece. Like somebody took her out. Like to me, the most interesting aspect of what's going on with Kristi Noem is just the fact that she got real brazen. She pissed somebody off and somebody freaking that knew stuff took her out. And that's just like, to me, that's fun to watch because that's like a Netflix documentary or a spy movie, right? I mean, that's some real world stuff happening in the world. But everybody's so fixated on the fact that oh my God, who cares? Do you know how many people are? Everyone forgets all the news anchors getting caught touching themselves and being naked and all this stuff on during the Zoom days. You think I love how people think they're such saints. They're like, like they're just doing what they normally do. You think she didn't know about? She knew. They all knew. Hey, Dad's got a problem, right? They all knew. Mm-hmm. But that's a political hit piece. So to me, the entertaining thing is don't talk about the people, talk about the whole crazy thing that's happening with that. But to me, what's disappointing to me is the whole Bondi thing, with Pam Bondi getting axed, and the way. And by the way, I love the way Trump does it, because Trump does it in a way where everyone's so thankful for him when he fires them. They're so happy about it, right? At least the ones that have their heads on the shoulders. I just am disappointed because I was a big Pam Bondi fan when she was AG in Florida, when she was working with DeSantis. I thought she was great. And I thought, damn, she's going to come in here and kick ass. And she didn't. And then whatever it is that happened. But I'm glad she's out, because I don't think she was effective at all. I think she from the get-go, with the holding the files up and everything, and we have it. And then going she was marked for death from that day forward. And the fact that she gimped along this long, I thought she was going to turn it around, but she didn't. So where are you at with it? Because I know you're not a huge Bondi fan or a Kristi Noem fan.
Yeah. So with Kristi Noem, as it relates to her husband and her affairs and all that stuff, that's not even a blip on my radar, because I understand that as human beings, man, we all have our flaws, and, we have specks in our eyes, and we see the big plank in other people's eyes. But let's truth be told, if we all took our worst offenses and we wore it on our forehead in high definition, we'd all be embarrassed and we'd all be judging each other. So as it relates to all of that stuff, I would prefer not to know about it, but the fact that we find out about it, it doesn't make me think one way or another of them, because people are people. Now, how you lead your life and what position you hold does matter. So Kristi Noem being, over Department of Homeland Security, what she does in her personal life, I could care less. Now, the president of the United States representing the country, you should be buttoned up because you represent all of us. Department of Homeland Security does not. So as it relates to why she got let go, they say it was spending $200 million on ads and all of that stuff to promote herself. That's all surface level. To me, she was a bad director of Homeland Security. She created so much havoc, and the way she used her rhetoric was just divisive. And I think she added fuel to the fire with regard with what happened out in Minnesota. Now, going to Pam Bondi, I have a whole different level of disdain for her and what she represents, because in my opinion, based on the facts that I've seen and studied and read, it appears as though she was covering up with the Epstein files. And I have concerns that there are people in political office, including Donald Trump potentially, that is exposed in those files, and that she was doing his dirty work. And so what happened to me, what I believe, is that when Congress subpoenaed her to come before under oath, because the first time she testified, that wasn't under oath. And so she could, wiggle her way out of answering questions. So now she'd be under oath. So I believe that triggered a response from Trump. But then the problem is that he goes and he appoints Todd Blanche, who's the assistant director. I don't see any way of him ever being able to take her position, because there's so many conflicts of interest. You know who Todd Blanche is, right?
It's his attorney.
Yes, his personal attorney.
He ain't staying there.
No, he better not, bro, because if he does, all credibility that anybody thought the Congress had is completely gone.
But here's my question. Here's my question to you on that, Len. Here's my question to you on the whole aspect with Donald Trump being incriminated in the Epstein files, or Pam Bondi playing cover for her. These files were the result of his Department of Justice during his first term, right? Their investigations. And then Biden had these files under his Department of Justice. and they investigated Trump up ways, sideways, down ways, Wonka Vader ways, every which ways. How is it that anybody could be playing cover for him right now when they wanted to nuke shot him, sayonara, checkmate him, and they tried to? I mean, they indicted him 48 million times, sued him 70 million times, brought up all these different types of things. Russia impeached him, all of these things. How is it that if this is such a nuke for him, why wasn't it used? Why would Trump? That's where I get stuck with getting behind that theory that there's something dirty on Trump. I don't think there's anything nuclear on Trump, because I don't think Trump rolls that way. I just think it's salacious, and he just doesn't want the salacious shit out there anymore. And maybe that's it. Maybe Melania doesn't like it because Barron's getting older. I don't know. To me, I just have a heart. I want to get behind you on it, Len, because I believe just as much. I want to know what's going on with the Epstein files, but I just think, again, why would they not use the nuke that with him? They had a chance to nuke him with it. Why wouldn't they have pulled the trigger on it?
Here's my theory, and I'll try to give an analogy on a micro level to try to tell you what my thesis about that is.
So you're going to try to debunk my defense argument, or
I'm only giving what I'm not trying to debunk it. What I'm
you're trying to help me understand why that's not a good.
Yes, that's my outcome, is for you to get a sense of why those files were suppressed. So let's just take me, you, Tasha, and Mary. Okay,
a preacher, a plumber, and a Corona.
So let's say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and we're all friends. Like, you and Tasha are good friends. Mary and I are good friends. And so in the course of conversation, it comes up that, both of us are cheating on our wives. Okay. Now, we both know this, but now we get mad at each other. And so I'm good friends with Mary. You're good friends with Tasha. So we have this dirty secret that we know about each other. So if we can each nuke each other. We can each nuke each other. So if I go and say, hey, Mary, you know what? I need you to understand, you didn't hear it from me, but Chris he's not being faithful with you. I know the minute I do that, even though I tell her not to say a mumbling word, the first thing she's going to do is, Chris, she's going to throw a whole bunch of explicatives behind that. And she's, and then you're going to be like, wait, what? Oh, Lynn told you? Oh,
game on.
Okay, Tasha, let me tell you.
Let me tell you about that one night Bangkok.
Right. So the moment I go and I start talking to Mary about you is the moment you go and start talking to Tasha about me. I wouldn't do that. And so what I believe is that they all have dirt on each other. All of their hands are so dirty that they don't want anything to do with any of it. And so to me, I just think that it's just a matter of time before it all comes out. And so I think they're all dirty. Honestly. And so
even Obama?
I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's the difference with him. His entire time in office, there were never any scandals, like personal scandals. Like, oh, he smoked cigarettes and drinks beer.
Yeah, but there's the whole homosexual thing, and Michelle's a man, and all that.
Those are all in like conspiracy camps. Like, if you saw videos of him in a gay bar, then that's different. Like, we saw videos with Trump and Epstein hanging out, having a conversation. Now, I'm not saying that means that he is responsible for any pedophilia. But what I am saying, though, is that there are actual reports that are out there that bring up Trump's name by name. And there's some pretty nasty things. And some of these girls ended up dead. Like, it's some pretty nasty stuff. So what I'm saying is that I'm not here to rush to judgment to say that he did it or he didn't. But I'm saying there is enough evidence to support a deeper, more thorough investigation on him specifically. But I believe that as his name starts to pop up and rise to the top, there's going to be other people's names, heads of states, and who knows who's in there. But so with Obama in particular, all the things that I hear about, his wife being a dude and all that, like that sounds preposterous to me. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest otherwise. I've seen pictures of her as a little girl, right? And so, but hey, who knows now with AI, what you can believe.
Right.
I can't believe half of what I see and what I don't see. But all I'm saying is that to me, I say investigate it all and then let the truth do like the old saying, let the truth just bring it all out. And whatever happens, man. We'll figure it out. I think as a country, it's better to know the truth because we're talking about little kids and rape and even possibly worse.
I don't think Trump's in that camp. I think he hung out with him, and that was before his conviction, and then he cut it off. And there's a lot of evidence that shows he had his subordinates cut off communications and ties with him, and he really wasn't. And then after that, there's really nothing else from the before 2008. After 2008, there's nothing else with him. There's far worse people in there, like Larry Summers and all those guys. I just don't think. Trump. It doesn't strike me as one. It doesn't strike me that way. I think he's a. I think definitely he's sexist. I definitely think he's a ladies. But he was born in a time where that was the currency. Men were, in America were built up that way. They're in the 70s and the 80s. So I think that's where he's from. But the thing is, to me, is Trump's been the same today as he was back then. Nothing's really changed. So. But
let the investigation bring out those other 3 million files, and then
here's the thing, though: if you
unredact all of those files, and then if he's clean, cool.
But here's the thing, though, Len: Trump's been investigated and indicted so many times. He's been investigated and indicted more than anybody else in America. If you do that again to him, it's checkmate for whoever does it to him because people are sick and tired of it now at this point.
Nope.
You can't.
If
what
the
do you
Democrats
mean?
take
How?
Over, because
No way, man.
happen.
No way. You'll have revolts, dude.
He has immunity right now.
He has immunity no matter what. He has immunity no matter what, though. If you try to investigate him again, it's dude. There's nothing. First and foremost, there's nothing to investigate because I don't think there is anything. I mean, because they would have found it.
Though. You can't say that.
How? I just don't know. I get your argument with they're dirty. I'm dirty too, so therefore. But they would have found it. They would have nuked him. They would have nuked it with him. Len, they accused this guy of treason. They tried to get this guy for treason, Len. They tried to get him for collusion with the head of state from Russia. They tried to get him for treason, Len. You don't think they would have went, let's get him on this pedophile thing? There's absolutely, I can't stomach the fact that there's just no way. Don't think
you should be fine with the investigation moving forward and unleashing those other 3 million files. Redacting those names.
The problem,
for the victims.
The problem I think for Trump is the exact opposite, Len. And I hate to make you burst your bubble, and maybe I'm not trying to say I'm trying to burst your bubble or anything, but I think Trump has got himself in a quagmire and his back up against the wall with this Epstein stuff because he wants to release it, but he can't because if he releases it, he's toast. And not meaning toast because he's in it. Toast meaning he's powerful, but he ain't powerful enough for everything to be taken from him and his family. Because they did it to the Kennedys. Len, they did it to the Kennedys. They did it to the Kennedys. And they said, hey, Bobby, you're the last one, baby. And look at RFK. What did he do? He immediately went, bro, everything's tribal, Len. He immediately went underneath the wing of Trump. He is in Trump's camp now. Like, if this was 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago, Bobby Kennedy is almost like a bastard child of the Trump family now, if that makes any sense. Because he's like, dude, I got to go somewhere where I'm protected because he's out there, dude. And you know why he's out there? He's out there because he knows the real shit. He's out there just because he knows the real stuff. Just like they went, dude, Diddy, they had to control Diddy because Diddy knows the real stuff. Mm-hmm. And they said, bro, bring it back in. Epstein Just they had to kill that mofo because he knew too much. And here's the thing. Trump can't release the files, Len, because the people on the other side that like to virtue signal all the time, and the party of, oh, we're so great and everything's nice and we want to tax the wealthy for you. No, they want to tax it for them and not you. That party that pretends whenever somebody gets you, Len, if someone comes at you sweet in terms of endearment, you automatically get on defense. Why? Because they're buttering you up, dude. They're buttering you up. See, the world is so naive, and I used to be one of those people where someone could give me a term and, oh, you're so handsome. Oh my God. I'm going to say, wait a minute. Let me hear these words first, and then let me back it up with their actions. Not actions for a day, but for a few months and a few years and a few decades. The problem is that party that virtue signals is not. They're the exact opposite of that. And that's why Trump can't release those files, because they do have a lot of power. And he knows that if he releases them, and by the way, Len, it's not just people on the left or in the opposite camp that virtue signal all the time, because the people on the other side, where the neocons and all that stuff, where like the Dick Cheneys of the world, they don't care that they're
signaling is about Christianity and the other virtue.
It's not even that anymore.
LGBTQ and
it's not even about that anymore. Those guys that just come out and go, screw it. They're just plain old scorched earth. And here's my last point about that. Mm-hmm. And here's why I don't think it. Look, Donald Trump has the most diverse employment record of any modern day executive in both the private and the public sector. Tell me an executive like Donald Trump that has hired more women, more minorities, and more people that I don't even know what to count in the LGBT community than Donald Trump has. Dude, sixth in line for the presidency is Scott Bessent. He's homosexual, the Secretary of Treasury. Probably one of the best Secretary of Treasuries you've ever seen in modern times, Scott Bessent. He's homosexual. And Trump gave him that position. Oh, but Trump's a misogynist? To me, Len, nothing is always what it seems. I don't strike it. It doesn't, Len, he just doesn't strike at me as that point. I think it goes the other way. But most importantly, Len, and here's where I think you've got ground. And I'm getting a little weird about it, okay? My slider, right? If we don't get this exit ramp out of Iran soon, that is the linchpin. Because that shit is ugly, dude. And it's ugly today. We're talking about total annihilation and bombing and like, we got to get out of there, dude. And I still am firm on my coalition belief, but that's the problem, I think, is that whole conflict now. But Trump, it's still not the end of May, so I'll turn it back over to you, Len. Now that I've said my piece on that aspect of things.
Okay, so as it relates to your president, Trump, I believe
he's your president too, though. He's your president too.
I'm an American citizen. I'm an American citizen. Yes, but when I say your president, I mean like you're on his camp. Like I'm
in his camp. Okay, yeah, I got you.
That's what I mean. I don't mean like I'm not an American citizen.
I say that, Len. I say that just because there's a lot of people today that would go, "He's your president too." So we're not saying that concept. For clarity, I know that.
Flippantly. So this is.
Ooh, that's a good word. How's that say? What did you flippantly?
Flippantly, I'm just being funny. You know what I mean? So,
facetious.
Yeah, exactly. So
flippantly, I'm going to use that one. Flippant.
so as it relates, I try to throw a couple of words out here and there.
So with that being said, Len, I always respect and appreciate our time today. It's a great one. I'll see you on the next one, sir. Have a great afternoon.
Have a good one.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.